The old way of recruiting, just filling roles, isn't enough anymore. A lot of that work is being automated, and AI is only getting better at screening resumes and scheduling interviews, and even in many instances, assessing skills. All of those things are things that recruiters were very proficient at doing. But what the AI can't do, it can't build trust. It can't challenge assumptions. It can't really connect those hiring decisions to the business outcomes or the pain point that hiring that person will solve for the business. So that's why we're really focused on helping our recruiters deliver what we're calling a human advantage.
Hi, I'm Johnny Campbell, and welcome to the Hiring Excellence Podcast. I'm thrilled this week to be joined by somebody who I've got to know over the last couple of years, had the pleasure of spending some time in person, where we've chatted about many things recruiting and many things non-recruiting as well, which I probably can't talk about on this podcast. But I suffice to say, we've had fun and we've dug into some great challenges. Today, my guest is Kristin McMillen, and Kristin joins us from Citizens Bank. She currently is the head of talent acquisition strategy and services, and she's going to share a little bit about Citizens, the bank, what she's doing. And we're going to dive into some of the transformation challenges and opportunities that the bank is going through at the moment, how that affects talent acquisition, and where Kristin and team are looking at the future in terms of the role of the recruiter, the role of a talent advisor, and what they're doing there. So hopefully plenty of great information for all of you to glean from. And Kristin and team are doing an awesome job. Last couple of years, I've been working with them as well. So I know you have plenty to learn today. Kristin, you're very welcome to the podcast. Wonder if you can maybe share with our audience where you're joining us from and maybe a little bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Johnny. I am joining you all from Rhode Island, the smallest state in the U.S., sitting in our Johnston campus here at Citizens. Citizens, for those of you who may not know, is a nationwide bank in the United States. We do everything from commercial lending to helping people open up their first checking accounts to making people's home dreams come true with helping them with their mortgages. We have about 17,000 people here in our company, and that translates to about 25,000 interviews every year that our recruiters do, about 10,000 interviews that our hiring managers do, and right around 5,000 hires every single year. And as the head of TA strategy and services, I get the really exciting job of thinking about the future of TA and how we continue to stay relevant in an ever-changing market and make sure that we're bringing in the best quality talent to the organization with the skills that we need to be successful in the future.
Kristin, have you always worked in TA and always worked in banking?
That's a great question, Johnny. I have been with Citizens. December will be my 20th anniversary with the bank. Wow. I am the quintessential skills-based journey for people who know me. Like, I started here as a contractor right out of college and just took every opportunity, raised my hand for every potential role, every potential project. And that led me eventually to talent acquisition probably about 7 years ago or so.
Wow. So give me a smattering of highlights of other parts of the business that you've worked in that you've really enjoyed.
Yeah. So I worked on the communications team for about 13 years of my journey with Citizens. I did everything from strategic mergers and acquisitions to crisis communications, to handling things like Credo Week, which is our colleague engagement week. And I even had the pleasure of working on our IPO back in 2014 and getting to stand on the New York Stock Exchange floor the day that we IPO'd. So it's been a pretty incredible journey, things I've done that I never thought I would have had an opportunity to do coming out of university.
So set the scene for me, Kristin. For those who don't necessarily work in banking at the moment, what's happening in your industry? And then in turn, what's happening within Citizens, or how is the bank reacting to the macro environment?
Yeah, Citizens, like many other companies probably, is really undergoing a pretty significant transformation. Everything that we do, though, we try to remain intensely focused on supporting our customers and giving them the advice and products and kind of insights that they need to feel successful with their financial decisions. And I think the same is true around how we attract and retain top talent as well. We really try to keep the candidate at the center of everything we do. But our journey at Citizens has really been driven by how our customers' needs are changing and the experiences that we can give them. For better or worse, those experiences bleed over into candidate expectations. Technology is changing. There are so many things happening in the regulatory environment. There's a lot of financial pressures that companies are feeling, and all of those forces have really been shaping our business model and our demand for new capabilities across the company. And, banks used to be all about branches and paperwork, but Citizens has flipped that script. We're really tech savvy, we're mobile first. Our whole goal is to really make things faster, smarter, and more personalized for all of our customers. We really want to be more like a trusted financial advisor than what some people think of when they think of a bank. And that shows up in our products and services. We are rolling out AI powered tools. We have a nationwide online bank called Citizens Access. We're really expanding our Citizens private bank. And we're adding things like point of sale financing to meet customers where they are. All of that's requiring a lot of investment in digital innovation and AI. But almost just as important as the technology is thinking about how do we simplify all of the processes that we're running internally and that may affect how our customers bank with us and how they experience us. And if you overlay all of that change in the banking space on top of the crazy market dynamics that are happening specifically within like the talent space, I mean, this is probably no shock to people who are listening to the podcast, but talent pools are shrinking globally. We have a lot of people who are going to be aging out of the workforce. And I think one of my team told me that 25% of the population right now is already Gen Z coming into the workforce. So happy to think about how do we share all of that knowledge that our aging workforce is having to the younger workforce, so we don't lose all of that knowledge and experience, especially with the rise of AI. And the other thing that's affecting companies is return to office mandates. That's making in some instances the talent pools even more difficult to find for the roles that we're looking to have and the locations we're looking to have them in. And if you think about that, so the talent pools are shrinking, and then you've got skills that are evolving faster than anybody can keep up with, and learning and development programs can train up on. And degrees and years of experience can't really act as signals anymore for when people have skills or when they're an authority on something. Just to share a quick example with you, we had a hiring manager recently who they were opening up a rec and they said that they wanted 3 years of experience in LLM development. But the reality is that technology itself has only been widely accessible for a couple of months, 12 to 18 months. So there are even managers out there who are looking for more expertise and skill than people even have because the skills are so new.
But you mentioned, when you were sharing your own career in the business, you've worked in different teams, you've had many opportunities. So I imagine your career hasn't gone in that linear route of education experience that gives you X, Y job. So certainly there must have been a culture, or has always been a culture of skills-based hiring. But tell me why now you think it's important, more important, or it's going to be more important in the future. What's driving that? And how does that translate into actual talent strategy in the business?
I think Citizens has always been a skills-based organization. We just finally put a label on it. People who have been here, as long as I have, they've stayed because of the opportunities to grow and try new things and raise their hands for new projects. We recently implemented a talent marketplace so we can have a better sense of the skills that the organization has and thinking about how can we help people grow those skills in new and different ways and take advantages of opportunities that they might not have otherwise been aware of, but do it in a project format, not necessarily in I want to move to this new job. It's kind of giving them an opportunity to test. So we're really just codifying what's always been kind of our philosophy around skills. And And, Susan LaMonica, our CHRO, she always says that the decisions that we make as leaders on who we bring onto our teams are the most important things. And it's really important that we hire for skill, and will. um,
But in that kind of world, I guess hiring managers in the past, maybe when you first joined, Chris, are very used to here's a spec, hire someone who looks like the person you want them to be. If they've done the same job somewhere else, that's great, maybe for a competitor, and that's the easy way of doing it. When you're, pushing more of a skills based culture on the business, it does require, as you said, some more codification, more guardrails, and maybe more first principles on how you hire. So what has the business been doing or thinking about when it comes to trying to bring at least consistency, if not in the roles and skills of the past, at least a kind of consistent view of what should everyone hire for? Do you have that view in the organization of common principles or attributes that you're trying to hire for, notwithstanding the fact that skills first is becoming more the way you hire?
we do. We've really taken a shift from kind of IQ to EQ to LQ, with LQ being learning quotient. So it's not just about what you know for our organization, it's how fast can you learn. And as a company, as we've been going through our hiring blueprint journey, which is what we've referred to as a recruiting process, we've had many conversations across the organization to understand kind of what are those critical skills that we think our colleagues need in order to be successful within our organization. And we've landed on three. Probably the most obvious one is customer centricity. We are in a service-driven business, so we do need to keep our customers front and center in all that we do. But we also have recognized that in order to be successful in our organization, people really need persistence and tenacity. And let's be honest, when you're in a highly regulated, fast moving environment, resilience matters. So that's something that we're starting to assess for. But probably the one that's most relevant to this conversation and probably to our success going forward is learning agility. We really need to be able to find people who have the ability to learn and grow through change, especially knowing that skills are evolving faster than training programs can keep up with. So, learning agility for us isn't a nice to have, it's really a must have.
So if you're trying to, one, standardize these kind of core three tenets of what every employee should have, and you're trying to educate hiring managers to look beyond experience and accreditations to widen their aperture, so to speak, for talent, what role is recruiting playing in trying to guide that transformation with hiring managers and the way they think, the way they assess, the way they look at talent, the way they write their job specs? What initiatives perhaps have you undertaken or are undertaking to try and support that?
Yeah, we've been on a journey for about the last 18 months or so to really transition what you would consider a traditional recruiter role into what we're calling a talent advisory role. The old way of recruiting, just filling roles, isn't enough anymore. A lot of that work is being automated, and AI is only getting better at screening resumes and scheduling interviews, and even in many instances, assessing skills. All of those things are things that recruiters were very proficient at doing. But what the AI can't do, it can't build trust. It can't challenge assumptions. It can't really connect those hiring decisions to the business outcomes or the pain point that hiring that person will solve for the business. So that's why we're really focused on helping our recruiters deliver what we're calling a human advantage.
Mm.
So it's things like, how do they think more strategically? How do they create empathy both with their hire managers and with their candidates? How do they use data and market insights to influence decisions? And how do they understand what's happening within the business? And all of those things, honestly, freeing up the recruiter's time to do those sorts of things is so much more rewarding and experiential and helpful for their careers than doing some of the administrative work.
I echo your points around the limitations of AI. I had a good chat yesterday with somebody who gave me two good examples. One, they were saying, AI might be able to take a job spec, analyze it, do an interview with a candidate, perhaps hear their answers, match the job requirements to the candidate's responses, and perhaps say, Kristen's great for job A because the job spec said we require adaptability or the ability to work by herself and independently. And you're going, this is brilliant. She gave me great answers. Let's recommend for hire. But what it doesn't know is one, perhaps the hiring manager is a micromanager who, just never changes the spec that she or he copied from somebody else. And actually, it would be disastrous to have a self-starter work under that hiring manager. So that's not a good fit. Or it could be an example where the business is thinking, I don't think this hiring manager is going to be here in 6 months. So really what we have to hire for is the wider team because this person is probably not going to be here in 6 months. Tons of things, or we're changing strategy, or we're changing focus. There's so much there that wouldn't ever perhaps be written down in a way that AI could consume and it could be trusted. So I think there's so much nuance in it where business meets hiring that certainly that human advantage you spoke about is something where I think you can carve out real, genuine strategic advantage from a hiring perspective. But tell me, this talent advisor approach, many of our customers have taken the same approach. Many others, you read about, advocate for this, and we see this direction for recruiting. What have you done to bring this to life, to make this a reality so far?
Yeah, it's been first of all I want to say like it's not a doom and gloom story trying to go from recruiter to talent advisor. We're not trying to fix something that's broken. We're trying to take something that's already good and make it even greater. So we've really spent a lot of time as a team coming up with how can we share what we're learning as talent advisors with each other? How can we do some peer-to-peer coaching and upskilling to help give each other feedback on kind of what's working, what's not working when they're talking with their hiring managers, and even give them opportunities to kind of role play and share some instances where they've had, let's say, less than desirable interactions with some of their hiring managers. We've found that those role plays and those team conversations around what good looks like as a talent advisor have been really, really important and have highlighted some additional opportunities throughout the organization too. So we've been doing what we call made ready sessions. Those are our branded version of training sessions with the team. And we were watching a video of an interview debrief with a manager. And the manager was leaning toward a candidate because, as he put it, he had a great vibe.
Hmm.
And it was one of those moments that really stuck with the team and a reminder of how easy it can be for likability to kind of overshadow capability. And the recruiter, because of their upskilling and how to be a talent advisor, used that moment to coach the manager and said, you know what, let's go back and look at what you said the talent profile was for this role. How did we rate the candidate across each of those profiles?
Hmm.
And how do they align? How does that align or doesn't align with what the role is requiring? And in the end, the manager ended up changing their decision. And that session was a turning point for the whole team because it showed people how powerful the ability to influence and serve as a talent advisor can be, not only for the individual recruiter, but also for the manager because they likely got a better hire as a result of that, and for the organization because now we're hiring somebody who's actually been assessed against the skills needed for the role versus whether or not there's somebody that's easy to talk to or get along with.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. Every recruiter has always wanted to do more of this, but you have to take some of the administrative work off them to free them up to have these conversations. And there's a lot going on in what you said there, Chris. And so, not just the challenging of the hiring manager on the spot, but you would have to have had a conversation prior to that to define the need clearly with rubrics to be able to then go back and have that conversation to go back to. So there's so much there, I guess, that's important that in a busy world with so many administrative tasks, we can get bogged down in doing the admin tasks in front of us and not getting to the meaty stuff in terms of planning the strategy with the hiring manager, getting that debrief, and
Mhm.
then executing on that and influencing as we go along. Tell me though, how are you thinking about measurement of this? I guess the anecdotal proof is going to be there where people go, this feels better, it's the right thing to do. I can give this specific example. But talk to me about how you are thinking about measuring that on scale. To your point, you're doing what, 25,000 recruiter interviews, X thousand of hiring manager interviews as well. There's huge volumes there to make the 5,000 hires. So how do you measure that this is actually the right way to doing it? Rather than just gut that it's the right way to do it, how can you quantify that or qualify that to say it works?
So that's a question I get from my CHRO at every quarterly business review.
Hmm.
And what I've shared with her is I think metrics are one of the trickiest parts. It's really hard to draw a line between training, both training our recruiters to become talent advisors, and also training our managers on our hiring blueprint and
Hmm.
how to hire according to skills. Because there are so many other factors that influence those hiring decisions and influence even after when somebody's brought on board. It may, to your example you'd given earlier, if they didn't interview for somebody being a micromanager, then you might get a self-starter aligned with that team, and then they're going to be a quick turnover because it's not going to be a quality hire or a right fit.
Hmm.
Um, but in terms of actual measurements, we're focusing really on creating consistency across the recruiting and the interview experience. We have something we call our Voice of the Candidate survey, which is something that goes out to every candidate who at least gets to a recruiter screen. And it's an opportunity for us to understand their experience both with our recruiters and with our hiring managers. And it helps us see where there may be challenges with our hiring blueprint adoption and where additional training might be needed. Conversely, it also will be showing us where candidates are feeling more supported throughout the process. So we have those two metrics of kind of recruiter process and business process that we look at the enterprise level, and we also have the opportunity to look at by individual business line. And then we also have a candidate experience NPS. We're really fortunate that our NPS is in the high 70s, which according to some industry research is top notch,
Hmm.
especially where 99% of the people you talk to don't end up getting the job, but we can still make them feel good. So we monitor that. We're also starting to look at our funnel metrics. Are candidates moving from interview to offer more quickly? Are candidates moving to hire more quickly? Each of those things can signal that the manager has a bit more confidence in their decision, given some of the training and upskilling that we've shared with them along the way in their hiring blueprint journey. And then the last piece that we're measuring is we do ask our hiring managers twice a year to share with us what is that partnership looking like with your recruiter or your talent advisor? How are they showing up as a strategic partner? How are they bringing data to those conversations? What's the communication look and feel like? And I can tell you, we ran that survey before launching our hiring blueprint and our talent advisory transformation. And by the second time we had run that, just 6 months later, we had already seen a 6% uptick in managers feeling like the quality of candidates we were submitting was stronger, and a 7% uptake in managers feeling like we actually had a transparent, rigorous, evidence based process. But maybe even more important in that, Johnny, was that we heard managers telling us that they actually understand why skills-based hiring is so important. We got a 4.8 out of 5-star rating on that. So they're really getting the crux of what we've been trying to teach them, which is so critical to making that full transformation to being a skills-based organization. Managers are a critical component of that.
So I love it. You're looking at that quantitative funnel metrics in terms of speed, velocity, the volume of numbers, the conversions, but also that qualitative piece. What are people actually saying, measuring sentiment, both from candidates and also from hiring managers? What about recruiters? What about the recruiter sentiment? What's the feeling from the recruiting team? Do they prefer this role? Do they feel more empowered? Do they feel like they're providing a better service? Do you measure that in a quantitative way?
We haven't been managing that in a quantitative way. No, not yet. But we are actually getting ready to roll out what we're calling a talent advisory bars assessment. And bars, for those of you who do interview all the time, know that that is a behavioral anchored rating scale. And we're starting to outline kind of what, with each of the skills that the recruiters are upskilling on, out of a level of 1, 2, 3, or 4, how are they showing up with executing on those skills? And we're having them assess themselves, and we're having their managers assess them as well to identify where there are gaps and move from what we were doing, which is kind of a team-based rollout of the talent advisory, the skills, the different steps of the hiring blueprint, to a much more customized, individualized development plan. Feedback on that has been exceptionally positive because the recruiters, they're salespeople, right? They like to know what am I being scored against? What do I need to do to get that performance rating that I want at the end of the year? And this approach is really helping them visualize and really reflect on where they are. We had one recruiter yesterday who was going through that exercise with her manager, and she goes, "Oh, I thought I was like a 4 in doing this particular skill, but now that you're telling me that a 4 looks like this, I don't think I'm there. I think I'm a 2. Can you help me get better in this space?" So it wasn't a punitive exercise. It was a true development, skills focused exercise. And now it's only going to help her become better. We'll have some quantitative data on that. Qualitatively, you can hear the pride in the recruiters' voices when they share on our monthly all hands calls those great experiences where they've been able to influence a hiring manager or influence a candidate to do something or to buy into what they're saying. They just have so much more confidence in what they're doing, and they recognize that value that it's having, that it's not just filling a seat anymore, that it's really like they're helping shape the culture and the leadership and the productivity of the organization because they're using skills-based hiring approaches to assess talent and and have managers assess talent. They really do kind of light up, as corny as it sounds. They do. They light up when they talk about and share their stories.
Kristin, I love the progress you've made on the talent advisory role in the last 18 months. And as you said, it's not moving from bad to good. It's actually just developing a muscle that was there and making it even stronger to align with the business needs. I imagine you're not done. There's never done in this situation. So what's next for citizens in terms of how you develop that talent advisory muscle? And how do you basically really arm the organization to be ready for the evolving skills needs, the different focus on skills first in terms of the way that they hire, and also trying to make sure that you're building in that muscle for those 3 core principles that you're hiring for as well?
Yeah, so we're building a skills-based organization, one hire at a time.
Mm.
Our next chapter is really about embedding our hiring blueprint. Like I said, that's what we call our recruiting process into the fabric of how we lead and grow our talent. By October of next year, 2026, we anticipate that our entire organization will have been trained on our approach. We're also in the process of integrating our hiring blueprint into new manager onboarding. So those folks who are new to the organization or are being promoted from individual contributor roles into manager roles will really understand our way of hiring from the start. And something that we've learned throughout a lot of this is that we can't treat this like an HR process or like a compliance training because we would have been dead in the water.
Mm.
We're really trying to approach it as a business capability and helping managers and sometimes our team understand how if you hire to solve a business problem, whether it's first year turnover or whether it's not having enough salary budget to get the hire that you would really want to have in an ideal world, we're tying back the solutions and the strategies that our recruiters are developing in partnership with our managers to those business challenges. But we're also looking at ways to incorporate some of the concepts of our hiring blueprint into existing leadership and management development programs, because it's really great if our recruiters talk with the managers about what the hiring blueprint is, their role within it, why it's beneficial. But for those managers, especially who don't hire on a regular basis, it kind of just feels like a training.
Mm.
So we want to give them the opportunity to practice what they've been learning, whether it's actively listening, whether it's asking probing questions, whether it's focusing on individual skills and skill development to really drive a longer lasting behavior change. Because we're not just teaching people about hiring, we're trying to build a hiring muscle across the team. And that works really deeply aligned with our skills-based strategy. I mean, just imagine a future, Johnny, where every candidate who comes in to our organization is assessed for their skills against the outcome needed for the role. And during the interview debrief, we might be able to identify gaps that that candidate has between their current skill proficiency and the role requirements. And then if that person is selected to become a new member of our team, how cool would it be that that person will then have a personalized development plan and onboarding plan that will help them close the gaps for in the next 6 months so that they have the full skill suite that we were looking for ideally. And the blueprint is helping us start to think about those things and partner with learning and development and talent management in new ways, which is only going to help us become a stronger organization. And our blueprint's also opening up new conversations with our reward partners. In the near future, we at Citizens may actually be able to extend offers based on skill proficiency ratings that are captured during the interview debrief. Like that would so fundamentally streamline the decisions around compensation and aligning compensation with capability. It could be transformative. And it's just exciting to see how training hiring managers or recruiters on a hiring blueprint can have so many tentacles into other areas of the organization and help other areas develop and realize their potential and their goals as a skills-based organization too. Because for us, it's really not just about hiring better. We really want to enable performance, accelerate development, and align to talent strategy overall. And I think that's what we're starting to do.
I can offer, Kristin, it's having a blueprint in the first place. That's one of the most fundamental things. Is that 18 months old as well? Or, when did the blueprint get signed off and agreed and first talked about?
So the blueprint, we first piloted it in January of this year. And this we've our enterprise data team. And we had our first cohort, our first real cohort after the pilot go out in early May. And so far, I can tell you we had a goal of getting through 50% of our hiring managers this year, which would be about 1,500 people. And I think last I saw, we were at about 140% of that goal. And just about 40% of those people had already completed the training as well. So we're making some really great progress pretty quickly. And I think faster than even some of our leadership expected us to.
Like it's a big thing. Like, some companies do this well, like the Amazon way of hiring, or there could be the Google way of hiring, etc., the Apple way of hiring. But so many companies just don't have a way of hiring, a philosophy that people can refer to and align on. So is this a written document that then people can find or go to on the intranet and say, here are our principles? And if so, Kristin, how did you develop it? Who was involved in developing that and getting the principles right, the language right? Or where did you get the inspiration from to kind of come up with the right themes?
Well, we got the inspiration from social talent. So thank you very much for that.
I wasn't teeing you up that on purpose, so that's great.
No, the social talent license to hire training was really fundamental to our hiring blueprint. A number of those concepts really appear throughout the different phases of our blueprint, which for us include a strategy alignment conversation, a recalibration, an interview strategy or prep, interview debrief, and offer. And we started out with really our recruiters articulating like what does good look like in each of those areas. And we have a document that we affectionately call the gray slide because it has a gray background on it, if no other reason than that. But it's really what our recruiters have been following to gain their confidence and having influential conversations with the hiring managers. And in terms of the hiring managers, we were having all of them go through, it's right around a 3-hour training with social talent. It's the license to hire path with a bit of a customization for our organization. And we have our CHRO pitching the importance of hiring managers in the hiring process and hiring decision making as a start of that training. So there's really buy-in from the very top of the organization. I will tell you too, we were very thoughtful about how we wanted to roll out the hiring blueprint across the company because as we just kind of talked to a couple of folks anecdotally, there seemed to be about a 50-50 split of people who thought, I don't need help learning how to interview and assess talent. I've been doing this for years. I'm great at it. I don't need you to give me any training. And then on the flip side of that, we have managers who say things like, even though I've been interviewing for 20 years, I would love to actually know what good looks like. Help me understand that. So what we did is we leaned into those 50% of executives who are kind of bought into the importance of hiring and wanted to get a refresher on how to interview effectively, how to assess talent effectively, and how to think about skills in a new and different way, right? And they were really the champions for for rolling this out. We started with those business areas, and our first cohort that I was mentioning went live in May. They're 98% done. We give them 90 days to complete it. So it shows that when leadership is bought in and touting the benefits of this and kind of walking the talk, it works. We're also in the midst right now of recording a video that will explain, probably in about 2 minutes or so, kind of what the hiring process is, the benefit of it. That will get embedded into that new manager onboarding that I was talking about. We're also hopeful that it will be something we can share kind of on the digital screens in our different campuses to help everybody understand what is this new process? Why are we doing it? And not just from a manager perspective, but also from a colleague perspective, because colleagues may want to apply for opportunities internally. And if they know we're going to be assessing them for customer centricity, learning agility, and persistence and tenacity, it kind of helps prep them for that interview too. So we have a couple of things like that we're doing. There's no one pager, despite what some people have asked for.
But there's obviously strong leadership to drive that forward, to get that done, to get the business to buy into a blueprint, to drive support from C-level executives, to have the certification being so successful, and for it to be well informed from both the recruiting team and the hiring manager population, so that it really reflects citizens' values and ways of thinking and business strategy. Kristin, it's been fascinating to hear the story of how that blueprint has come together. I think the hiring blueprint is going to, really serve as a central focus for the citizens' way of hiring. And I think and team are doing an amazing job around that. And we're looking forward to seeing what's next and hearing what's next, Kristin, over the next couple of years. Thank you for coming and sharing that with us. Really do appreciate it, Kristin. And thanks for being candid and honest about what you're doing, some of the ROI goals and some of the metrics as well that you've been able to see, the successes so far. And I wish you continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and joining us today to hear how Kristin and Citizens Bank's recruiting team are forging ahead with their hiring blueprint and driving a talent advisory culture, and also better outcomes that are aligned to the business's strategy for transformation. It's something I think we can all learn from. We'll be back again next week with another great episode, another great leader sharing their insights on hiring excellence. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next week.